I gotta admit, the vegans almost had something. They almost had something, and they almost were able to truly flex their intelligence on the world. I've heard some vegans claim that the WHO found that meat is carcinogenic to humans, according to a WHO report. Well, the WHO report that I found said eating processed meat is carcinogenic. Understanding the findings, they are not, apparently. Last week, the World Health Organization, WHO's International Agency for Research on Cancer, IARC, announced that consumption of processed meat is carcinogenic to humans, Group 1, and that consumption of red meat is probably carcinogenic to humans, Group 2A. The report differentiates the two meats as follows. Processed meat is meat that has been transformed through salting, curing, fermentation, smoking, or other processes to enhance flavor or improve presentation. So, stuff like bacon, essentially. Red meat is unprocessed mammalian muscle meat, such as beef, veal, pork, lamb, mutton, horse, and goat meat. Because we eat a lot of horse meat here in the. Well, I mean, they probably do over in other parts of the world, but here in the U.S., not so much. I just have a question. I just have a question, though. Is venison red meat? I mean, I'm not seeing deer or venison as red meat. So does that mean that venison's not red meat and therefore it's safer? I'm not going to make that claim, but they didn't identify it. Consumption of meat was classified. Consumption of processed meat, was classified as carcinogenic, and red meat as probably carcinogenic after the IARC working group, comprised of 22 scientists from 10 countries, move the fucking cursor, evaluated over 800 studies. Conclusions were primarily based on the evidence for colorectal cancer. Data also showed positive associations between processed meat consumption and stomach cancer, and between red meat consumption and pancreatic and prostate cancer. Okay, fair point. Meat processing, such as curing by adding nitrates or nitrites or smoking, can lead to the formation of potentially cancer-causing carcinogenic chemicals such as N-nitroso compounds and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. I have a serious question, though. Do electric smokers cause carcinogens? Do they create carcinogens? If not, I want an electric smoker in my house or attached to my house. Gonna potentially smoke some fish, like some perch or walleye or trout. Meat also contains hemi-iron, which can facilitate production of carcinogenic NOCs. Cooking, especially high-temperature cooking, including cooking meats over flames, pan frying, grilling, and barbecuing, can also produce carcinogenic chemicals, including heterocyclic aromatic amines, HAA or PAHs. I just took a health literacy class, and one of the things that we had to do was analyze a health site and determine the readability score. This will not do very well because you're not explaining your terms very well, Harvard. Not everyone is doctor level and smart. To help further explain the report findings, we spoke with Kano Wu, a member of the IARC monograph working group for this report and a senior research scientist in the Department of Nutrition at Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. The IARC working group said red meat is probably carcinogenic, but several studies showed no clear association. Can you explain why it's probably carcinogenic? In large population studies, but not all of them, greater red meat consumption has been associated with higher risk of colorectal cancer. Although these studies were not entirely consistent, results of laboratory studies led the IARC working group to conclude that red meat is probably carcinogenic. So the key word is probably, so it's not definitive. Yet the big-brained vegans over here are claiming this to be a definitive statement. Like it's definitely carcinogenic. Well, the science doesn't entirely back you up, vegans. So there is some room for you to be incorrect. So you cannot say it's definitive. Some reports in the media, particularly those from the meat industry, promote red meat consumption as part of a healthy and balanced diet. Is this true? While it is true that red meat has nutritional value, it's rich in protein, minerals, and vitamins. Many studies have also shown that high consumption of red meat can increase the risk of colorectal cancer, heart disease, diabetes, and other chronic diseases that may lead to a higher risk or dying of those diseases. When compared to other good sources of protein such as poultry, fish, or legumes. Thus, much evidence suggests an optimally healthy diet would be low in red meat. So, information that we've known already. I mean, we've known that high consumption of red meat has the potential to be problematic. But we've also known that red meat consumed in moderate amounts is not necessarily problematic. I mean, I'm no doctor, but this has been general knowledge for years. I mean, I'm no doctor, and I've known that. Let that soak in. So, yeah. Some reports in the media, particularly those from the meat industry, my dumbass just read that. And no, I'm not going to edit that out. The IARC/WHO classified processed meat as a Group 1 carcinogen, the same category as tobacco smoking and asbestos. Some media reports have indicated that eating bacon or hot dogs is as bad as smoking. Is this true? It has been known for a while that high consumption of red or processed meat can adversely affect health, including raising risk of colorectal cancers and some other cancers. So the conclusions drawn by the IARC working group are consistent with what we already know. However, the way the media has reacted to last week's IARC/WHO announcement has created a lot of confusion and requires this clarification. The IARC/WHO does not assess the size of risk. The International Agency for Cancer Research used clearly defined guidelines to identify hazards. an example of whether an agent can cause cancer, but IARC does not assess the level or the magnitude of risk. So quantitative assessment. So for those of you who don't know what the difference between qualitative evaluation and quantitative evaluation. So qualitative essentially defines the quality of the research, whereas the quantitative defines the amount that's being researched. So I'm in a clinical trial myself. For example, the amount of patients in that clinical trial, or in my clinical trial, would be the quantitative aspect. And then the qualitative aspect would be the information that we get from the clinical trial. And just so you know, for research studies such as this, you do need both. Like they're both equally important, because without one or the other, you're gonna look like a complete and total buffoon. Because if you don't have the quantity, you can't determine accuracy, or you can't determine if it's going to be. You can't determine consistency. And if you don't have the quality, well, you can't verify your information. So just in case you're unclear about that, about qualitative versus quantitative. The IARC evaluations are important in enabling governments and international regulatory agencies to conduct risk assessments in order to balance the risks and benefits of eating red meat and processed meat, and to provide the best possible dietary recommendations. As an example, U.S. Dietary Guidelines Committee issued a review of Diet and Health earlier this year. Among the conclusions was that red meat should be low. Consumption of red meat should be low for both human and planet health. Smoking versus high consumption of processed meat. Even though smoking is in the same category as processed meat, group 1 carcinogen, the magnitude or level of risk associated with smoking is considerably higher for lung cancer, about 20-fold or a 2,000% increased risk from those associated with processed meat. An analysis of data from 10 studies cited in the IARC report showed an 18% increased risk in colorectal cancer per 50 grams of processed meat increase per day. To put this in perspective, that's 50 grams of processed meat. That's a lot of processed meat. Like that is just so much processed meat. 50 grams is actually a lot. Let me see how many strips of bacon 50 grams is. How many strips of bacon is 50? How many slices of bacon? Oh. Alright, but keep in mind, that's every single day. So 50 grams of processed meat every single day. That's a lot of processed meat to eat throughout your life. So imagine waking up and having 2 slices of bacon every single day. every single day. And how many people do you know actually do that? I don't know about you, but I don't know anyone that actually does that. To put this in perspective, according to the global disease burden, processed meat, the Global Disease Burden Project 2012, over 34,000 cancer deaths per year worldwide were attributed to high processed meat intake versus 1 million deaths per year attributable to tobacco smoke. So essentially, what this says is although these are in the same category, you'd have to be stupid to compare these two. Like, they're not even comparable. So vegans, you're 0 for 2 so far. You're not doing so good. We kind of knew what you were to begin with, or before we started this video, but the WHO is only confirming it, us, and putting you down. So sorry about that. Well, just kidding. Not entirely. High consumption of red or processed meat also increases risk of other chronic diseases and mortality. It is important to keep in mind that the above estimates pertain to cancer deaths only. It is well known that besides increasing the risk of some cancers, high red and processed meat intake can also increase risk of other chronic and potentially life-threatening diseases such as coronary heart disease, stroke, and type 2 diabetes compared to other protein sources such as poultry, legumes, and fish. Our group at Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health and Harvard Medical School and others have also found higher rates of total mortality with higher intake of red or processed meat. In fact, according to 2013 data from the Global Burden of Disease Project, the number of total deaths, including deaths from cardiovascular disease or diabetes and colorectal cancers, attributable to a diet high in processed meat was 644,000. So, okay, you got that one right, but on the other hand, you're still attributing this to all meats, and you're pretending like it's known that all meats are dangerous, and all meats are these cancer-causing death sentences. That is not what the WHO is saying at all. You need to get your facts straight before you spew your misinformation, okay? Some people purchase nitrate-free processed meats, such as a fairly new food trend. Could that help people make processed meat less carcinogenic? So-called nitrate-free processed meats are often preserved with celery juice, a plant rich in nitrate. The source of nitrate added for meat preservation will not likely matter. Furthermore, processed meats can also contain other carcinogenic compounds such as PAHs, which can be formed during the smoking of meat. Processed meats, particularly those containing red meat, also contain hemi-iron, which can enhance the formation of carcinogenic compounds in the body. Until we know more about the exact mechanisms underlying the relationship between processed meat and cancers, it is best to treat those nitrate-free processed meats the same way as any other processed meats and limit intake. So, again, this essentially just boils down to limit processed meat. Well, the vegans did not win as big as they thought they did with this one, that's for sure. I mean, another gross overstatement made by this so-called or this apparently big-brained activist group that's supposedly all about our health and all about the facts and knowledge. Well, there's a reason why I don't listen to these people for my health reasons, and why I listen to my actual doctors over these people who think they know what they're doing. Anyways, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. If you liked it, leave a like. Actually, go watch my most recent video. It will be up on screen at the end. That's also a health-related video, although that one pertains more so to my mental health. Watch that video. Like that video, share that video. Do the same for this video. Like it, share it, comment. And if you're a vegan and you're pissed at me, okay, fine. Like, I'll listen to it. Or I'll at least have open ears to it. Whether or not I'll take that to heart is highly, highly, highly debatable. Well, actually, highly, highly, highly unlikely. Okay. Subscribe to my channel, and I'll catch y'all next time. Bye.